Hello ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to today's webinar, where I'm very pleased to say we have a very exciting story, which is looking at how e-invoicing has helped NSG align finance and procurement, and has very much helped to take their PO compliancy from 50% to a very impressive 90%. Our sponsors for today, I'm very pleased to say, are Ariba, and they are going to be co-presenting this webinar. So extend to you a very warm welcome. My name is Susie West. I am the CEO at sharedserviceslink.com, and many of you are very familiar with us. If you aren't currently a member, please do become one. It is free, and it gives you access to a whole bank of information on our website. And just for those of you who haven't worked with us before, we're a business community helping the finance and accounting shared services and outsourcing market mature, and we do that through our webinars such as this one and through our conferences. Just so many of you will have become very familiar with our website since we launched the latest version of it in November of last year. A new addition to the website is the Solutions Directory, and if you are looking to reach out to the market or evaluate the market for a particular solution, please do go onto the Solutions Directory. It's been very much built and architected with you in mind, and you are very much have a look, welcome to have a look round and see if you want to find out a bit more about e-invoicing solutions or data capture solutions or outsourcing solutions. Please do use this as a resource. You can see that Ariba is one of our premier listings on the site, and we do go into quite a bit of detail about particular companies and their client base and their unique selling points. So do make sure you go and check that out after this webinar. What does the agenda look like for the next 60 minutes? I'm going to touch on how this session works and then the intention of this session, and then I'll be handing over to our two presenters for the day and then taking your questions in the last 10 minutes of the call. So it's a very straightforward platform, GoToWebinar, but really for the benefit of those that haven't used it before, we do have technical support on the line if you do need any support. And in terms of how questions work, please do submit your questions to me. You've got a free text box in your GoToWebinar panel. Submit that to me. The sooner the better, please. And then I will take those questions and put them to the two speakers in the last 10 minutes of the call. I urge you to take advantage of the opportunity to ask those questions. Let's have a look at the intention of this session. So end-to-end processing is very much recognized as best practice within shared services organizations. And a lot of organizations now, shared service organizations, are really striving for that, and they realize if they want to get to a very compelling KPIs around first-time match rates and payment on time, then they need to be treating their accounts payable process as an end-to-end process, so really purchase to pay. Everyone that does this will tell you that the results are so much more powerful when accounts payable stops operating as a silo and aligns with procurement. So, so this really is an agenda for a lot of accounts payable organizations right now and shared services leaders. But I think we all recognize that accounts payable and procurement haven't naturally been comfortable bedfellows in the past, don't always speak the same language, and haven't always had the same kind of objectives and drivers and vision. So this is going to be a very interesting session to help you find out more about how you can really get either procurement if you're in finance or finance if you're in procurement on board. And we'll find out here in this session the kind of impact it does have on chief KPIs like PO rates, for example. And I think, again, we all know we're all aiming for touchless processing. Touchless processing is a big driver for shared services organizations right now. Big reliance on first-time match rates for touchless processing to happen. And again, we all know that in order for high first-time match rates to happen, we need to have high PO rates. So it's all very much intrinsically linked. So both of these factors, the increase in PO rates and the alignment of finance and procurement, both of them involve changing of behavior. but also the application of the right kind of technology for you as an organisation. Now, before I introduce our first speaker for the day, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have our first poll question coming up on your screen very shortly. So it should be appearing now. How aligned are your AP and purchasing functions today? So please tick the box that's most appropriate to you. Absolutely aligned. We treat AP as purchase to pay. Aligned in most ways, but we still have a fair way to go. Still a fair bit to do to really reach the kind of levels of alignment that we're after. Aligned partially, but still operate as silos. Not aligned, but planning this for the next 12 months. Not aligned and not planning it at all. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't voted, please do so. We've got 67% of you voted. So if you haven't done so, do so. I'll be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. 78% of you voted. Let's have a look at the results coming up on your screen now. So 3% of you absolutely aligned. Very pleased to have you join us today. Thank you. And 37% are aligned in most ways, still have a fair bit to do. I'm very pleased to say that 0% is not aligned and not planning to be so. So that's a very encouraging result there. And on that very positive note, I would like to introduce our first presenter for today, Ian Ronan from Ariba. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Susie. My name's Ian Ronan. I'm an account executive working at Ariba in the Network and Financial Solutions team. My role is really to help medium and large size organizations streamline and optimize the way they do business by leveraging the Ariba network, which we also call the Ariba Commerce Cloud. I'm joined today by Jonathan Fallows from NSG, who's an Ariba customer, and he'll be doing most of the talking. So in a few minutes, I will hand over to Jonathan, who's going to talk to you more about how NSG have helped use E-Invoicing to align finance and procurement and move their PO compliance from 50% to 90%. As an introduction to Jonathan's presentation, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to share some knowledge and insight with you. This is a snapshot of some of the findings from the most recent Hackett P2P study. The Hackett Group, for those of you who perhaps not aware, they're a world-renowned performance modeling and benchmarking consultancy. Their P2P studies benchmark and analyze large organizations from a wide variety of industries. And their well-respected studies clearly show that of the organizations they looked at in their study, those that have end-to-end accountability across the purchase-to-pay process are more likely to be top performers than those who do not. Also of interest was the fact that top-performing organizations have a strong tendency to align their purchasing and accounts payable processes through procurement rather than finance when compared with non-top performers. And this is absolutely borne out by Ariba's experience. More and more of the customers we work with are aligning their purchase to pay through procurement and have dedicated P2P process owners. Moving on, in the same study, Hackett also explore how organizations with strong end-to-end alignment through their P2P operations compare with weakly aligned organizations. And this slide looks at how they compare across a range of efficiency and effectiveness key performance indicators. Of particular interest is the huge difference in electronic invoicing success between weakly aligned and strongly aligned organizations. And I think behind this would certainly include aspects of supplier enablement, which require close collaboration between procurement and finance. Moving on, from experience, we at Ariba know that to optimize the P2P process and unlock the greatest savings, it's crucial to take a holistic view of the end-to-end process and indeed view it as a value chain. Organizations seeking world-class performance should look for a technology solution that will deliver the most value across the three stakeholder groups of procurement, finance, and suppliers. And this is exactly what the Ariba network delivers. When we consider that in the majority of cases the invoice begins life as a purchase requisition, it's proven the more accurate and up-to-date the content of the requisition and the PO, the more effective and efficient and automated the invoice matching process can be made. Suppliers are a crucial link in the chain, and they ultimately are the source of the procurement content, which needs to be accurately reflected in the PO that is sent to them. Of course, suppliers then issue the invoice. So the more integrated suppliers are into the end-to-end process, the more aligned the transaction data being shared between suppliers and customers, and the more automated the end-to-end process can become. I'm now going to hand you over to Jonathan Fallows from NSG.
Thanks, Ian. Hello, my name is Jonathan Fallows, P2P Finance Manager within the NSG Group. I would like to start my presentation today by introducing NSG, acquirers of Pilkington, a company that perhaps you may be more familiar with, in 2006. Both NSG and Pilkington are long-established companies with histories dating back to the 1800s in Pilkington's case, and 1900s in NSG's, with some of the key dates outlined for you. In this century, NSG took an initial investment in Pilkington in the year 2000 and acquired the remaining equity in 2006. 5 years on, NSG Group today is a global glass leader operating under the Pilkington brand in building products and automotive business lines, with principal manufacturing operations in 29 countries, sales in approximately 130 countries, ownership interests in float lines worldwide, 49 of them, and we generally operate in 3 business lines with approximately 29,000 employees globally. We're a leading supplier of high value-added building glass. We have a global automotive customer base, a strong position in glass for solar energy applications, and we are a leading player in lenses for multifunction printers through our specialty glass business line. NSG Group is a global leader of scale in flat glass. NSG is a truly global business with operations worldwide. NSG operations are spread across the 3 business lines I mentioned, building products, automotive, and specialty glass, with major operations in Europe, Asia, specifically in Japan, China, South and Southeast Asia, and North and South America. The key element in NSG's acquisition of Pilkington was the minimal geographical overlap between the 2 companies. The continuing significance of Europe within the NSG Group is apparent both from the employee numbers and the operations that you can see on the chart. Europe is a key area of focus for us, not only within the business, but also for our procure-to-pay process and the project that I will be outlining to you. There are 2 main reasons that Europe was significant from a process point of view. One is the volumes of transactions. Europe is a strong player for us in the operations, but in business volumes as well. We have 220,000 invoices that were processed through our financial shared service centers in the year 2009, and this is a significant volume for us. But also, and perhaps more importantly, on the system side, the SAP system that is our preferred ERP system throughout the NSG Group had been long established in Europe. We had stable processes there, and this was a strong foundation for us to look at the P2P focus process and focus in on some of the issues that we knew we had there, and Joe would help us to move forward in terms of our P2P objectives. So in terms of our approach to the P2P process, we acknowledged that where we were was not necessarily where we wanted to be, and we termed the project that we were going to set out upon to improve the process as being basic to better, an acknowledgement in the basic that we weren't where we wanted to be, and better that we wanted to improve some key areas of the process, and we gave ourselves a timeline of 18 months to achieve that in order to tackle some of the fundamental issues that we thought needed to be addressed before we could really take on P2P as a serious area for delivering value. The reasons for the P2P project were largely born out of some organizational restructuring along a category focus within the procurement organization, and an acknowledgement within that there are some key areas that needed to be improved to enable that to happen effectively. One of which was the visibility of spend. 40% of spend within the NSG Group was not feeding into our procurement systems, and this was largely through not using purchase orders in the areas for us, key areas of energy, transport, professional services, and there was a strong desire to capture that spend through PO compliance. Also, many of our business units, due to the nature of what they were acquiring, didn't use POs as a matter of fact within the process, and some of the units had compliancy rates of in the low 20s or 30s. So key area of focus for us, and one that needed to be tackled as part of this project. Another area was improving control of creditors. We had hundreds of payment terms within the different SAP systems that we were using. They were often conflicting between procurement and finance, and there was no clear direction and ownership and real understanding of these terms, which was a significant barrier in terms of really controlling creditors. The area of efficiency within the P2P process was one that it was clear that automation opportunities existed in the market that we hadn't yet looked at, and we felt that we needed to start adopting some of these automation processes and delivering some efficiencies through that. The effectiveness of the P2P process was not a given. It wasn't managed as a process. It wasn't understood as a process. And one of the key aspects that we were going to establish was to actually set out as an end-to-end process and start measuring this as an end-to-end process, something that had not happened within the organization previously. So the P2P project that we set out was structured along three main areas. One was compliance, one was process, and one was organization. The key aspects within that were to launch on the compliance basis some clear directions and KPIs to measure the process against, to also deliver a visible, transparent process that was standardized and automated to the level that we were trying to achieve, and we'd set ourselves as a deliverable. And some of the key aspects within that was a pilot project for invoice scanning, and the rollout of SRM, SAP's Supplier Relationship Management module as part of the automation to be delivered within the process. And also on the organization aspect, to align cross-functionally and to make sure that we manage the process effectively from an end-to-end process perspective. And some key aspects that needed to be delivered within that weren't part of the P2P project was an organizational change to split out transactional procurement processing from the buying activities that in the past had been linked to that role. So if I start with the compliance area, the procure to pay process we defined and to set out in terms of the ownership of the different areas of the P2P end-to-end process, and basically make sure that there were key defining characteristics and procedures in place for each of these areas, because in the past they weren't defined, they weren't thought of as a process. Each of the business areas had their own directives for these areas, but it wasn't managed as an end-to-end process. So at the end of the compliance definition stage, we had P2P transactional end-to-end processing defined with 12 principles clearly set out, and the overall ownership of the process was very clearly with procurement, and this was an acknowledgement also from finance that finance is a key stakeholder within the process, but an overall process ownership needed to be assigned, and that was with procurement. And procurement also had the procedure, the policy approved at executive board level to make sure that we had full sponsorship of the project and of the process going forward. I'd like to just outline some of the key areas that we were tackling within the process, because I think this may be of interest to you. The clearly change management aspects are quite significant within this area, and I'll touch on those separately. But just to give you a feeling as to some of the metrics that we were looking at in our process at the outset, the basic process, if you like, we had 350 payment terms within SAP in use within Europe, and we set ourselves the target of having 20 global standard payment terms to be adopted by the business. In terms of the use of SRM and PO compliancy, we had an average level of 50% across the business areas, and we decided that we didn't want exceptions. We were targeting 100%, and that we would motivate and drive the process forward across the business areas to achieve that. And this requires some clear process alignment between procurement and finance, because having or moving from 50% PO usage to 100% PO usage changes not only the volume of purchase orders processed within procurement, but it changes the way that finance and AP process invoices, a big move away from non-PO invoices to PO invoices. And for those involved in that process, for us, that meant first three-way matching rather than invoice approval. So there's some clear change management aspects that needed to be considered within this, but they were all important in terms of achieving the P2P end-to-end process objectives that we'd set ourselves. Also within this, you can see some of the key areas of moving on the automation side, on invoice processing, from invoice scanning and workflow, and some of the metrics that we were targeting, and also in terms of the payment cycle and the deliverables there. And essentially the main thing that we were driving for is to move from a compliant, or move from an uncompliant process to a compliant process that was predictable and centrally controllable. In terms of how we would communicate this within the business, I think it was very clear that we needed to find some simple ways of engaging with the business, and we pulled together some key metrics that were communicated widely within the business in terms of roadshows, and the metrics are measured on a monthly basis and reviewed between procurement and finance to ensure that not one area was driving forward, but that we were measuring the process and managing the process on an end-to-end perspective. And again, you can see 100% purchase orders, simple message to sell, difficult perhaps to achieve, but one that we set about, and we achieved some significant inroads into that process area. So at the end of our 18 months of the basic to better process, what did we achieve? Well, I think quite a lot. We moved forward in terms of the management of P2P, in terms of the end-to-end process. We took on and tackled a lot of the change management aspects and achieved some significant improvements in compliance. We had the process monitoring KPIs that were being reviewed on a monthly basis, with all of the businesses reporting those and measuring those on a regular basis. And in terms of the better process delivered, we had process improvements, SAP, SRM catalogs rolled out, widely used in terms of our preferred process option, moving away from standard SAP POs to using shopping carts within SRM, which I think was a significant enabler of our drive to PO compliance. We had implemented invoice scanning, and a significant process improvement within the invoice scanning project was the deliverable of an SAP accounts payable dashboard, which collects all of the invoices coming in and enables them to be managed through SAP workflow, and driving forward on that. And in terms of transactional procurement, the alignment between procurement and finance was not only one of process and working together, but wherever possible, we have co-located accounts payable and P2P procurement to enable the interaction to be on a daily basis, and the focus to be on the end-to-end process rather than operating as functional silos. Before we move on to the next phase, I'd like to hand over to Susie for a poll question.
Thank you very much indeed. Jonathan, coming up on your screen now. We're very interested to know what AP shares proactively with procurement today with the intention to improve purchase to pay. Is it goals and objectives, targets, initiatives, projects that you share together and you proactively work on together, deliverables, or none of the above? So this is multiple choice. So please don't feel obliged just to tick one box. What does AP, the accounts payable function, share proactively with the procurement function today, with the intention to improve end-to-end purchase to pay? Goals, objectives, targets, initiatives and projects, deliverables, or none of the above. 63% of you voted. Those of you that haven't, please do so. And I will be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. We got to 69% there. Let's have a look at some of the stats coming up on your screen now. Clear winner there with just shy of 60%. Procurement and accounts payable seem to be working together quite nicely on initiatives and projects, with 41% coming in for goals and objectives and targets, 26% on deliverables, and just 21% none of the above. So thank you very much indeed. And back to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Susie. In April 2010, we reviewed our process deliverables within the P2P project, and we're looking at the areas that we thought we should be focusing on in moving from a better process to a best process. And I'd like to take you through some of the considerations that we were reviewing at that time. Our SAP ERP system linked with the SRM module of SAP was part of our core capability that we had rolled out, and we were developing the use of that. Also, we had already some limited capability in terms of vendor portal and invoice scanning that I'd mentioned previously. But in terms of moving forward with these process areas as part of our best process for P2P, we felt both vendor portal and invoice scanning had limitations that we didn't necessarily want to therefore roll those processes out further. Invoice scanning in particular, I mentioned we had the process element of the SAP accounts payable dashboard that was delivered with the COFAX solution that we had on invoice scanning, but we quickly realized as part of the invoice scanning process that some significant investment on our side, as we had implemented an in-house managed process, that in terms of really developing the OCR side, the optical character recognition, was an area of the process and technology that we didn't want to develop an expertise in, and therefore, we weren't going to move forward in terms of rolling out invoice scanning more widely. So the area that presented some opportunities to us were within the core ERP module, looking at ERS, so evaluation settlement. I can't remember what the R stands for at the moment, but in terms of the EDI process, it's on a supplier-by-supplier basis, we could look at that. But what stood out for us in terms of deliverable that would drive us forward to towards best status was E-Invoicing, which incorporated in terms of the way that we were looking at it, the PO delivery and via purchase order flip, which I'll explain in a little bit more detail later, the invoicing back to us by the supplier through an e-invoicing platform. So this was our clear favorite in terms of moving forward, and the solution that we were looking at was with an e-invoicing platform, and I'll just explain a little bit more around the third-party platform and some of the considerations that we looked at within that. A third-party platform is clearly significant in terms of speed of enablement to EDI and to other ways of linking with suppliers that we considered in the past were on a supplier-by-supplier basis. A network provides already onboarded suppliers, suppliers already transacting, and reasons to join networks other than electronically transacting with us. So there was a wider population available, and also the onboarding of NSG suppliers was something that a third-party platform provider could take on for us. Also, because we were looking at e-invoicing not only within Europe but more widely, important for us was a tax compliance solution that was available within the geographies that we were looking at. Also, a technical aspect within the integration with the third-party platform is the support available to link our SAP backend systems to the network provider, and looking at some of the functionality available by a third-party platform provider to suppliers. So just some of the validation that can be set up on a platform, the electronic signatures that suppliers, as the outbound invoices will require them in several of the countries, is the deliverable of the electronic signature is a key consideration, but also some more widely interesting elements to suppliers in terms of being able to monitor the status of invoices through a web portal, and also being able to flip purchase orders back to us in terms of the ease of generating invoices on a portal to us. So overall, we were envisaging that through a third-party platform we could achieve better internal and external process compliancy, and I'd just like to take you through some of the key factors that we were looking at in our choice of Ariba. One thing that we'd certainly learned through E-Invoicing and through our process management in our earlier phase of the P2P project was that smart E-Invoicing, as we like to call it, or Ariba calls it, but we've adopted, is really key. We weren't interested in receiving as many electronic invoices as possible and creating bottlenecks within our accounts payable process. What we really wanted to have was a high rate of touchless invoices that through the alignment of the purchase order and the invoice would flow through into our accounts payable, hopefully as lights out processing, touchless if you like, with no interaction required from the accounts payable team. So Ariba offers some solutions around that, and also the global presence of Ariba was important to us. We're envisaging rolling out E-Invoicing to all our SAP using operations, so global spread is important, and the scalability of Ariba and the coverage of the global regions in terms of enabling us to roll out was fundamental, and also the tax compliance solutions that Ariba offer in all of those countries. We're also already a user of Ariba products, and synergies between the Ariba products already in use and the possibility to link that to an E-Invoicing project was also quite interesting to us. So overall, the choice to move forward with Ariba was made, and just in terms of process, I'd like to take you through some of the key elements that we think will benefit us and have benefited us within the e-invoicing process. E-invoicing, in the way that we've implemented it, drives by its very nature PO compliancy. So we've made some significant inroads into PO compliancy, and e-invoicing is taking this to another level. Why? Because invoices that suppliers want to send to us via the Ariba network require a PO to have been sent to them first. So a PO is required for suppliers to be able to do the PO flip and generating an invoice back to us. Also, due to some of the validation elements that I've mentioned that are available on the Ariba network, retrospective POs, which are a way of perhaps bypassing PO compliancy and not necessarily working within the intent of the process, could be significantly reduced through validation on the network. Also, and this is an area that I'm very pleased has actually established itself, is that by having the PO flip process, the end-to-end process that is limited by our ERP system is actually extended beyond it to the supplier. So that because the supplier is linked into our PO in that the supplier has to flip our purchase order to generate an invoice back to us, it means that the structure of the PO, the quality of the PO that a supplier receives from us has to be such that the supplier can actually generate an invoice back to us. And this means that there's significantly more dialogue between requisitioners and people working within procurement and on the P2P process, in order to make sure that the supplier and the way that we generate our purchase orders enables the supplier to generate invoice back to us. And this drives a more high quality purchase order and a better understanding between our organization and suppliers in terms of how we want to be invoiced. Clearly, the alignment between procurement and finance, the key aspect of what I'm talking about today, is significantly required through the invoicing process, not only through the onboarding effort that's required, but so in terms of contacting suppliers, explaining the e-invoicing process to them, which is largely the first contact is made through procurement, but also in terms of explaining to suppliers how they can generate tax-compliant invoices and general questions around the process that were largely dealt with in the back end through the accounts payable part of the P2P process. But also, and more significantly, once you move into touchless processing, as we have through e-invoicing, the purchase order and the data set upon the purchase order will drive the invoice processing. And given that it's touchless, nobody sees the invoice coming in, so we need to make sure that at the outset the tax coding is correct on the purchase order, and other elements such as the payment terms are correct and aligned between procurement and finance, because with most of our invoices we don't see the invoices anymore. So there's no intervention from accounts payable at the back end of the process. Also, we've seen an enhanced relationship with suppliers, and invoice status messaging that's available on the web portal from Ariba is a key self-service aspect for suppliers, and through the development and the establishment of electronic invoicing, and one of the key aspects of that is the faster invoice processing. We're also looking at developing other value-adding process opportunities, such as dynamic discounting, where in terms of payment terms, rather than having discount terms, there's a dynamic functionality to agree between supplier and ourselves as to discounts that can be taken, but not on fixed terms. So there's all sorts of functionality that we're looking to explore with suppliers going forward. So in terms of the invoicing project, I'd just like to explain a few elements of the timelines and the deliverables of the invoicing project that we established. We set out on the project in June 2010. We sent both purchase orders and invoices electronically. We've included within the project suppliers with more than 20 invoices per annum. So those of you knowledgeable about the size of invoices and the graph that usually relates to number of invoices per supplier, so there's a big tail end of suppliers that send very few invoices. So 20 invoices per annum for us is a significant number of suppliers, and ones that the project is in conjunction with Ariba onboarding as we speak. In terms of geographies, the e-invoicing project encompasses Germany, UK, Poland and Italy in year one, and then we are looking to roll out to the rest of Europe, countries such as Sweden, France, Spain that are important to us, and North America beyond that. And in terms of our expectations on the processing of invoices, we've set ourselves a target of 50% in year one, and 70% touchless invoices beyond year one once the process is more established. To give you a flavour as to how long it takes to implement an e-invoicing project and the key areas within that, the project we have with Ariba was structured around defining a strategy for enablement, the technical integration aspects with the Ariba network and our SAP systems, and then the enactment of the strategy and the supply enablement, which you can see highlighted in the different colours and the key areas set out within that. From the project kick-off to go live was planned as taking 4 months, and I think we're all very happy to report that we actually went live in the first week of October. So not such a long period perhaps in terms of from inception to kick-off, but one that clearly was delivered to plan. So where are we today? E-invoicing, an enabler of change. I'd like to take you through the key metrics that we've achieved, but before I do that, I'd like to hand over to Susie for another poll question.
Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan. So appearing on your screen now, please, if you can tick the box, we'll turn this poll around quite quickly, if that's okay with you. Who, like NSG, is live with electronic invoicing today? So who, like NSG, is live with e-invoicing today? Yes, we went live between 2003 and 2007. Yes, we went live between 2008 and 2010. Yes, we went live, or we're going live this year. We are planning to go live in 2012. We are planning to go live in 2013. So if you can tick the box, which is most appropriate to you, please. And I will be closing the poll in 3, 2. We've only got 52% of you voted, so if you haven't already voted, please do so. And closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look at the results coming up on your screen now. So quite, again, a clear winner there with 43% of you planning to go live in 2012, so certainly within the next kind of 16 or so months. 3% of you only live between 2003 and 2007, so not many kind of early adopters on the webinar today. So very interesting results, and back to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Susie. In terms of our e-invoicing progress to date, just some key facts for you. We have enabled over 280 suppliers for e-invoicing so far. We have received 17,000 invoices since we went live. Our annualized run rate is 40,000 invoices at the moment, but we're continuously enabling suppliers, so that will increase. And our touchless invoices, perhaps the statistic we're most proud of, is over 90%. So in terms of what have we seen in terms of benefits through this process? The significantly improved touchless processing rates are ones that perhaps surprised us, but we're very pleased about. We were experiencing around 20% with our invoice scanning process, and through the smart e-invoicing process, the PO flip, we now have a 90% success rate on touchless, which is a key driver in terms of the efficiency of accounts payable processing as well. About 1,000 invoices that we receive touchless per month equates to one accounts payable clerk manual invoice processing. So you can see there's some clear benefits that we're bedding in at the moment within our finance service centres, but there's some very encouraging results that we've received there. Also, in terms of the supplier queries that come back to us, the nature of queries is changing due to the self-service capability. We have a supplier that regularly monitors the web portal to see how the invoices are being processed, and if the invoices haven't moved to approved status, the supplier will contact requisitioners within our organization to make sure they do the goods receipting. So it's very much driving changes in behavior through the suppliers, and also through their understanding and transparency of our invoice processing. Tax compliance is a key area, certainly as we roll out, and even in the jurisdictions in which we're operating, tax changes have occurred in the last year, and having Ariba updating the functionality in the Ariba network, clearly is giving us confidence and comfort in those areas. And lastly but not least, we have clear objectives in terms of sustainability, and electronic invoicing is a key aspect of that drive that we have on that important area. So the next steps for e-invoicing: we're continuing to onboard suppliers in the UK, Germany and Poland. We're rollouting e-invoicing to Italy, the rest of Europe and North America. The target that we've set ourselves for year 2 is 60,000 electronic invoices, which through the additional suppliers that we're onboarding in the countries that we're already operating in, plus the new countries, is a target we feel is very much achievable. And we're also as our SAP system rolls out to other regions, looking at those for the potential for electronic invoicing. So if I can summarize then, e-invoicing is achieving our P2P process expectations by systematically improving our PO compliance. And as I've already mentioned, no PO equals no invoice. So that really is a key driver there for PO compliance. And it's also strengthened significantly our process alignment between procurement and finance, leading to much better touchless rates than we'd anticipated. So 90% touchless rates clearly requires a strong alignment between the PO from procurement and the invoice processing through accounts payable. Ian, over to you.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm going to take a few minutes just to give you a brief overview of the Ariba network solutions that Ariba customers deploy to help maximize cross-functional collaboration and drive process optimization. Ariba owns and operates the world's largest business commerce network. It's known as the Ariba Commerce Cloud. There are over 500,000 suppliers connected to the Ariba Commerce Cloud from more than 150 countries. To give you an idea of the scale of the business being done on the network, in the last 12 months there were over $190 billion worth of transactions across more than 70 currencies. The Ariba Commerce Cloud is rigorously tested and audited every 6 months to the highest possible standards to ensure security, process integrity, availability, and performance. Buying organizations use the Ariba network to connect and collaborate with suppliers online rather than using traditional paper-based methods and all of the manual associations that entails. Because it's proven to drive much higher levels of efficiency and effectiveness across the end-to-end process. Suppliers can connect and interact with the Ariba network in a way that's most appropriate to their specific needs, from an easy-to-use web interface where they can receive POs and flip them into electronic invoices in a couple of clicks, as Jonathan was talking about, right up to fully integrated data connection and everything in between. Regardless of the method, suppliers use the network to create digitally signed, secure electronic invoices and transmit them to the suppliers electronically. One of the really impressive things that Ariba network does to help drive touchless processing, as we heard, is perform deep validation of the invoice data against a set of buyer-managed business rules, what we call smart invoicing. The Ariba network uses these rules to trap the invoice exceptions before the suppliers can send them to the buyer and informs the supplier of the reason for the validation failure. In this way, the suppliers can correct the problem and resubmit the invoice data. This has helped a lot of Ariba customers drive touchless invoice processing to beyond 98%. Suppliers also love this because they know successfully submitted invoices are much more likely to be approved and paid on time, which is really what they're after. Moving on, to enable buyers to receive the invoices or transact any other data to and from their back-end systems, Ariba deploys a network adapter that delivers the required connectivity for the buyer. There are a number of adapters available depending on the type of finance system and technical infrastructure each customer has. Suppliers on the Ariba network, suppliers with an account on the Ariba network get access to the Ariba network via a user interface or portal, for want of a better word. And this portal gives them visibility to all their transactions and all their activity. They can use the portal to see the status of invoices as they're being processed and even as they're paid by customers in their back-end systems, including, for example, where a PO maybe needs to be receipted in order to complete the invoice approval and matching process. And in this way, suppliers can contact the person receiving the goods or service to check everything is okay and request they complete the receipting of the PO so the matching can be completed and the invoice ultimately paid. The supply portal is proven to drastically reduce suppliers' invoice and payment queries. All of this functionality is included in what we call PO and invoice automation. Moving on, crucial to the success of any program is supplier onboarding. So Ariba provides customers with unlimited supplier enablement services. We have a team of over 400 personnel dedicated to supply enablement and support success. We use our unrivaled experience and expertise in delivering global supply enablement programs to help our customers plan and then execute effective supply enablement programs. We bring proven methodology and supplier enablement automation tools that help streamline the process of onboarding the suppliers and provides a real-time platform for tracking and reporting. Most customers prefer Ariba to do the majority of the supply enablement execution activity, but in some cases Ariba customers want to enable some of the suppliers themselves, and they can use our supply enablement tools to enable them to do just that. Regardless of who actually carries out the supply enablement, customers appreciate having the flexibility and choice. Moving on, beyond supply enablement, Ariba also offers invoice conversion services. This converts residual paper invoices coming from suppliers who have not yet joined the Ariba network and digitizes them, converts them into electronic data. The invoices are sent to a dedicated PO box where Ariba sorts the mail, scans, and then extracts the invoice data from the scanned image using state-of-the-art OCR and intelligent data recognition technology. The invoice header and line item fields are extracted to a guaranteed service level of 98% accuracy. And the resulting images and high-quality invoice data is then transferred to the buyer across the Ariba network to the AP system at the back end in exactly the same way as if it was a true electronic invoice. In this way, customers can remove 100% of their paper invoices from their business from day one and migrate suppliers away from paper onto the network over time. Moving on from ICS, we also provide solutions for working capital optimizations. One of the best examples of our working capital suite is our Discount Professional tool, where buyers are able to process invoices very quickly, ready to pay, and can then leverage this fact to negotiate and optimize the early payment discount capture. The tool helps to automate and streamline much of the process around proposing and agreeing early payment discount terms with suppliers, using both static and dynamic discount proposals. Clients have used this to achieve and drive savings of over $1 million per year from their supply chains for zero risk in terms of the investment. Suppliers also love this, obviously, because they get access to much-needed cash much more quickly. Moving on from working capital, Ariba also provides an invoice professional tool. This is for customers who are not entirely happy with their existing AP invoice reconciliation tools. Invoice Professional helps automate much of the invoice process in terms of 2-, 3-, or 4-way matching against POs and receipts or contracts. And it also provides a very easy-to-use AP workbench and invoice approval capability. Moving on, Ariba provides a contract compliance module which helps ensure that savings that are negotiated up front in the process, in the sourcing process, are driven right through the contract to the bottom line in terms of the invoice, and savings do not leak out through lack of price compliance. Compliance to the contract is often a manual check that is performed by accounts payable, procurement, or other business users, in some cases after the invoice has been paid. But this module helps trap non-compliant invoices automatically. And lastly, procurement content helps ensure that the procurement content used at the beginning of the process is accurate. It helps maximize PO compliance by making it simpler for requisitioners to buy things, provides a shopping basket front end, making it extremely easy for users to create a requisition from a catalog in a few clicks. And it also makes the management of catalogs much more efficient and effective. So lastly, if we look at the reasons why organizations want to move to electronic invoicing and better manage their cash, these are findings, again, from the Hackett benchmark, very high level. In terms of process efficiency, organizations are seeing typically about 70% cost takeout. But then if we look at the more strategic components around working capital management, Hackett are saying that there's a 15 million euro working capital impact for every 1 billion of spend, which is significant savings beyond the simple process improvements. So last but by no means least, if you're interested in any of these areas, please do get in touch with us. We run and can create and conduct business case analyses with individual customers to a much greater degree than you see here. Our website has a lot of white papers and webinars, so please do visit and learn more or get in touch if you want to talk directly with us. I'll now hand over back to Susie.
Thank you very much indeed, Ian. We have a very limited time for a couple of questions, so if I can ask both of you for speedy responses, please. A lot of questions coming through, Jonathan, for you around 100%. So how, as far as getting to 100% PO compliance sounds attractive, but what do you do with small suppliers or low-value invoices? Is it worth raising a PO for them?
The process we've adopted is that for now it is the way that we want to move forward. So we do have small suppliers. We have across the spectrum, suppliers are forced to have generate POs, and as the process matures, we're analysing as to whether that really is the most efficient process. But we felt that you can't have 98 or 96 or whatever as a target, because it's not clear to the business. So we felt the message of 100% was more easily sold, even though it may entail some areas of inefficiencies with it.
Okay, good. Also, you mentioned as a payment term, you were looking to get from the 350 that you did. Did you actually reach your target of 20?
25.
You got to 25?
We got to 25, yeah.
Okay. Good. And also, just a final question, if I may, on electronic invoicing. This is more kind of regarding the legal compliancy for you, if that's okay, Ian. So e-invoicing does not prevent paper invoice flow in certain countries, especially for tax compliance. How do you manage that as a constraint?
Sorry, could you say the first part of that again?
Sure. There are some countries that still require paper,
yep.
And where it is the elimination of paper. So how does Ariba kind of work with that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there are countries globally that simply do not allow electronic invoicing in terms of a tax compliant process. Good examples are where this is the case. It's Japan, for example, an advanced economy, but they do not allow electronic invoicing from a legal and tax point of view. We have customers there who are receiving invoice data electronically from the suppliers, and that enables them to automate the invoice process in terms of matching against purchase orders or contracts, possibly getting them out for approval. But they then also wait for the paper invoice to arrive in the traditional way before they actually post the invoice for payment. So there's a kind of a manual check. Yeah, have we got the paper? Did it match to what we received electronically? And then we post it for payment. So they can automate most of the process, but they still have to wait for the paper because that's the law in those countries.
Okay, and I'm just going to sneak in one final question because I know that this will be very relevant to a lot of people on the phone. Aimed at Jonathan, please. How do you manage smaller suppliers who indeed have very limited capacity?
Well, we found that the smaller suppliers, because all you need is access to a web portal, that the smaller suppliers are the suppliers who are more keen to be onboarded because they are much more in control then of the invoicing process within our organization. They need no technology other than a laptop, or I think we've managed it even maybe with an iPhone or iPad.
Okay, good. All right, thank you very much indeed. So just coming up on your screen now, you can see a lot of events coming up. I'm really pleased to say that Ariba is present and has a booth at the next 3 conferences that we have. So please make sure that you do sign up to them and that you come and meet the Ariba team. Ariba has very generously acquired some passes, 2 for each of the upcoming events, which they would like you to raffle for now. So which event would you like a VIP pass to as Ariba's guest? Enhancing SAP to Maximize Financial Services Excellence, the North American Summit for Leaders in Finance and Shared Services, or the AP Tech Summit, which is looking purely at the technology aspect of accounts payable. Please do respond. The tickets are worth £2,000 and you will be there courtesy of Ariba. So thank you very much to Jonathan Fallows for a very insightful presentation, and thank you very much to Ian Ronan from Ariba for giving us a very comprehensive overview of what the Ariba solution does. And we have a number of webinars coming up. You can see there on your screen when I close the poll down, so please make sure that you join us for the next one in the series. I will be closing the poll if you haven't already voted in 3, 2, 1. And ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to welcoming you next week if you can join us for Purchase to Pay, the magic steps to adding value through real end-to-end processing. So I hope you will be able to join us then. Thank you and goodbye.